Welcome. This is Steve Shadrach, founder of Support Raising Solutions. This podcast is part of a 15-week series launching your first 100 days after boot camp. Today's episode is hosted by our friend, Aaron Babiar.
This is Aaron Babiar, the Director of Support Raising Solutions, and we're excited that you are listening today to one of what's hopefully going to be many different podcasts and further information on how to help you be spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded. Today, my guest is someone you've probably already heard of. It's the author of the God Ask book, and Steve Shadrach. Welcome. I'm glad you're here, my friend.
Aaron, it is an honor to be here, as always, brother.
Well, listen, you probably know just from some past conversations that the idea for these sort of recordings is to be an additional coach, additional ear of information and encouragement for people post-training, whether they've been through SRS Foundations or SRS Boot Camp. We know that it's a little difficult once someone hits the road, so to speak, to keep the wind in their sails.
It has always haunted me a little bit. We can give folks great training and they go away on top of the mountaintop, excited about what they're doing and heading back home and ready to tackle the world. But Monday morning it comes, and then all of a sudden it's them and God. Mm-hmm. And there can be a sense of isolation. They're feeling alone. They can get discouraged easily. I've experienced that myself. Even in the last year, I've experienced some things that, just feeling alone and discouraged and kind of paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And so I think these podcasts are going to be a great encouragement to our listeners.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that have come up in a lot of the public boot camps that Micah May and myself have done, which we've done a lot of them over the past almost 4 years, one of the things that has come up consistently is that, hey, everybody that's here at an SRS boot camp, you're kind of having that summer campfire, kumbaya, it's Friday night, and you're roasting marshmallows moment because You're in the room with other people, and they have similar goals for the Great Commission, and it's exciting. But now that you're out and about, or when you go out and about, you're going to need to really hold on to some good principles. If you're going to really hold on to this, if you're going to work diligently towards being spiritually healthy, vision-driven, and fully funded, it is going to be work. It's not going to be easy, and you're not always going to have new best friends cheering you on.
Yes.
So I know that you read the email that we have sent out that's gone along with this, and I know that you also have that heart for just continuing to coach, even as impersonal as it is, helping us coach people past their initial training. So, Steve, as you've looked through the same email that a lot of people listening to this have learned to, I know that you've had some ideas and some further things to add to it. But start out, if you would, just tell me about what might seem elemental or elementary, if you will, to a lot of people. But tell us a little bit about the prayer life of a support raiser and why that's so crucial.
Well, I think the area of prayer, I would not say it is a strength for me. I'd say it almost has to be a discipline for me, and something that I purposely set out to do. As I think about how it relates to support raising, I try to bathe my all my names in prayer. Not only names, but also numbers. I will go over incredible lists, my A team, my B team, my C team of levels of people that I want to approach. Who am I approaching this month, this week, today? And praying over them that they would have open hearts and open pocketbooks, open hearts in the sense that they'd be receptive about getting a phone call, receptive to meet, receptive to hear about our ministry. And then I actually pray for numbers that Lord, would you please put it on their heart to give generously at this level or this range. And I think God goes before us. Psalm 127, lest the Lord builds the house, those who labor in vain. And the Lord gives to his beloved, even in their sleep. And so I think that prayer, God uses it to open hearts, open pocketbooks to pave the way. But then he does something to me, too. When I pray, it has a way of preparing my heart. And I want to genuinely go into an appointment and say, I've really been praying about our time together. Not to manipulate them at all,
right?
But to really be able to genuinely say, Joe, I'm so excited about meeting with you. I've really been praying about our time together.
Yeah. And quite honestly, when you're able to say something like that, truthfully, authentically,
Yes.
that means a lot.
I think so.
Because there's a lot of people that, quite honestly, they don't have those conversations. They haven't had someone say to them, hey, I've been praying about our time before we even sat down today.
Yep.
And you're right. You don't want it to seem manipulative. But if it's genuine and it's truthful, that can carry a lot of weight with people. And it might actually cause them to go, well, wait a minute here. Here's somebody inviting me to do something that's significant.
Yeah.
And it meant so much to them. They were praying about our conversation before we even had it.
In some ways, to the degree that I put emphasis and priority and importance upon this appointment, and the purpose of it is to the degree that you, as the potential supporter, will put importance and value to it. And so don't underestimate, how much our praying and planning and organizing, getting ready for this thing can consciously and subconsciously have an effect on that person as to whether they'd want to come on your team or not.
Yeah. I'm thinking in my head about what people might be responding to in their head while they're listening to our conversation. And I know that there's probably someone out there that's thought, well, great. Yeah. How am I supposed to pray for my 10 or 12 appointments I've set up over the next day or two? Like, I don't have time for that. I have to sleep at some point, man. I got to go to the restroom at some point, man.
Yes.
I think that there is certainly that heartfelt, genuine time of prayer. Talk about, though, prayer or maybe some methodologies of really walking in the Holy Spirit, staying connected with the Lord, even when you are in that time of sprint where you do have a back-to-back-to-back appointment schedule and you barely have time to eat or use the restroom.
Well, I've always kind of jokingly said desperate men do desperate things. And if there's ever a time in my life where I have felt desperate for the Lord, it'd be during support raising. So my prayer life really does accelerate during support raising because I'm afraid. I'm trying to trust God to overcome my fears. I can procrastinate. I can actually go into denial. I mean, I can experience all kinds of emotions. What is the thing that's going to help me walk through those fears and apathy and procrastination and laziness and denial and all the things that we, kind of attack us?
Right.
Well, it's the Lord. It's keeping my eyes focused on
Amen.
the Lord in my time in prayer. And so really getting up early if I have some appointments today, I'm going to go before God and say, oh, God, I desperately need you today to fill me with your spirit, to speak through me, to allow me to look directly into the eyes of this man or this couple that I'm meeting with love and compassion, but with vision and not backing down and being afraid, lacking self-confidence about the vision that you've given me, to be able to ask very specifically whether they would, join with me. And so I need the Lord, and I specifically ask for courage, ask for clarity. And then as I'm driving to that appointment, I'm just bathing that in prayer, bathing it. Sometimes during the appointment itself, I'm kind of consciously, as I'm
Please,
praying.
Jesus, help me. Yes,
totally. it's a short prayer. Nehemiah prayed it. When the king said, "What do you want to ask of me, Nehemiah?" He paused. It was maybe a nanosecond of prayer. But he knew exactly where his confidence and courage came from. He also knew exactly where the money was going to come from, not from the king and all his vast resources, but from the Lord himself. He made the God ask. That was what the God ask is all about.
Amen. Well, I know that we emphasize, or we try to emphasize in every boot camp, that spiritually healthy, that's the building blocks. That's where it starts. That's first base. And you're really in trouble if you move on. In fact, to stay with that baseball analogy, I know we've said more than once that, if in baseball, if you go 2 out of 3 at the plate, you're in the Hall of Fame. But in Great Commission work, if you only go 2 out of 3 and spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded, you're in for a heap of trouble. And it starts with that spiritually healthy.
Yeah, you have to go to first base before you go to second base. Those 3 phrases were put in that order for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that someone has to be some sort of spiritual giant, Billy Graham or a John Piper or something. No. They can be a young believer, but they are seeking each day to be in fellowship with God. They're seeking each day to be growing as a Christian. They're taking their life and their ministry and their support raising, and they're putting it on the altar every day, every morning. Psalm 5:3. It's what King David did. He each morning he got up and he ordered his prayer to God. And then he expectantly, the rest of the day, the verse says, he would look to see how God was going to answer those prayers. So he prepared for the day before the day started. And there's some wisdom to that.
Let's kind of segue a little bit on the preparation thing, because I believe you and I are the same heart, that it starts with your relationship with the Lord. But obviously, there are some things that need to be done when it comes to organization, when it comes to planning. And the email mentioned things about different softwares and gathering your to-do list and your tools. And I know that you've done some good thinking on some of those topics. So kind of dig into a little bit more about the other sorts of preparation that's necessary as people are just starting out. In a lot of cases, people listening to this are just starting out.
I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm that strong in this area. Some people probably have the gift of administration or organization or can really get into the details. I've always felt like that's a weakness of mine. I was looking at an Abraham Lincoln quote recently, and he said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. The idea of working, smarter, not just harder. And so I think that to really think through and pray through and get good counsel, good reading, good materials to help you understand what does it mean to be fully prepared before you launch out into sport raising is really important. I'm helping my son do this right now. My middle son is going into full-time ministry, and it's so much fun to help him think through the steps and the process. And he is reading 2 different books. He's reading The God Asked, but also Scott Morton's excellent book, Funding Your Ministry. But he's doing all the Bible study. I mean, every single verse. And that'd be what I'd want to ask our listeners here. One thing is, okay, I appreciate you. Maybe you've gone through the preparation packets or you've done the Bible study, but have you really done the Bible study? Have you really studied the scriptures and developed convictions? If it was just kind of a little exercise, a little homework for you, I think I would go back and I would build those convictions, because you're going to need them. I promise you, you're going to need those biblical convictions as you begin, as you persevere. 5 years, 10 years down the road, you're going to need those convictions. And if you don't do it now, I doubt you'll ever do it. And so
I agree. Well, and I'll say this too. Okay. We always ask people at their SRS boot camps, hey, how many people actually did all their homework? And there's always some. But it's never 100%.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's only about 50%.
Yeah.
And that is definitely something where I almost feel bad for those that didn't find or take the time to do the other prep work, because we're not grading anything. We don't take it back to the office and go, well, this was a C+ and send it back to them or anything like that. It's themselves that they're missing out on some of the really essential tools and also spiritual development things that are really needed when they do all their homework. They read all the scripture. They read the book, that full preparation. And I know that's something we've said there as well is hey, do yourself a favor. Honor God with some of your time. And before you jump too much into this support raising thing, go ahead and do a little remedial work on yourself.
Well, I think they were interviewing Billy Graham at one point, and they said, what are some of your regrets in life? And he said, well, I would spend more time in prayer. He also said I would spend more time in the scriptures, not just in message preparation, but for personal application.
Yeah.
And so, one of my favorite quotes, S.D. Gordon, he said, prayer is the real work of the ministry. Service is just gathering in the results of prayer. And so I think that laying this foundation of prayer is essential, laying this foundation of biblical convictions, not just Bible study, but have you meditated and applied the scriptures, these passages you've been studying that we've given you to study, have they then transferred and worked down into your spiritual bloodstream to become convictions?
All right.
That's a question that I have. And also, have you identified the obstacles in your life, the issues, the excuses? All of us have these little voices, I feel like I have this issue or this obstacle or this struggle, or here's an excuse that I might have to. If we could identify those and allow the scriptures to attack each of those, kind of kill the giants in my mind, I think we're going to be able to approach this whole thing of support raising with a much healthier perspective. And people are going to sense that. In those appointments, they're going to sense whether we really have those biblical convictions, those biblical perspective, or whether we're kind of coming to you as this, beggar, without confidence or without a real foundation in us,
Yeah. Well, that's great. I know that a couple other things that come into all this right now is when you're talking about the organization is you start getting into, calendars and running your schedule and maybe using a software or anything like that. And I know that's changed. There weren't good MPD softwares back when either of us started support racing.
Brother, we had paper and pencil. Yes, that was all that we had.
Hey, I had an Excel spreadsheet, but
I had to get to my appointments in a horse and buggy. That's how old I am.
Right.
It was in the post-Civil War days when I approached a lot of my fellow Civil War soldiers for support.
Well, listen, as we're wrapping up, what's a couple of things that what's a couple different things that you would suggest schedule-wise as people are organizing their time?
Well, I do think that there's some excellent software out there that we can recommend, a variety of different options there to keep us organized.
We'll put some of those in the show notes, by the way.
I just think, the old traditional to-do list, whether you do it on your phone or on paper, whatever, but monthly, weekly, daily to-do lists. And that means, who am I going to pray for today? Who am I going to call today? Who am I going to meet with today? Who am I going to follow up with today? And I mean, if you don't have the gift of organization or gift of administration, you may require you, like me, to put it in overdrive and just say, okay, during these next 3 months, I'm going to overmanage myself and I'm going to put it in high gear. And I think that again, my own son, I'll mention to him, he is now working hard to name storm like crazy, hundreds of names. Have I really put the time into, and now he's organizing them into his A team, his B team, and C team. And one thing I'm trying to help him do is if he can get to at least 50% with his A team. Don't hardly approach anybody on the first, 4, 6, 8 weeks, but those A team, those people you're pretty positive about meeting with you, pretty positive about that they'll come on your team. If you could get to at least 50% with all these yeses with your A team, that's going to supply not only a great confidence in you, but man, what a great foundation to do that second 50%.
And what I'm hearing in there is you have a personal goal.
Oh, yes.
And you're helping him set a personal goal. And I wouldn't want to put that on anyone to say, hey, if you don't reach 50% with your A team, you shouldn't be raising support. That's not what we're saying at all. But even right there, you're demonstrating, and your son is moving forward with setting a personal goal that we don't prescribe that in the SRS, anything. We don't do boot camps or blogs or anything like that. We don't say you have to do this, but we know it can be helpful.
Yeah.
Just like we do know there are people that do raise their full support in 100 days or less. Doesn't mean people are a failure if they don't get that done. But having those short-term, work hard, like you said, overmanage yourself, personal goals can really go a long way as you're getting started.
One last tip, Aaron, and I've been thinking about this recently as I've interviewed different groups of people. If you are getting started in support raising and you know a veteran support raiser that you respect, that you think knows what they're doing, ask to go on an appointment with them before you get started, just to watch, observe, learn, interact with them to see what you agree with, don't agree with. And then during your first 5 appointments, before you shoot yourself in the foot and ruin yourself down the road, have a veteran staff person or someone you respect, someone that you've been successful in support raiser, simply go with you as an observer.
Invite him in.
And then afterwards say, okay, what do you think? Give me some feedback. Give me some honest response here. I just think if you can go on an appointment and then have someone go with you during those first 5, it's going to better prepare you to be successful down the road.
Yeah, and I'll say this too: if somebody can't go with you, you could even record your appointment, and you could share it with your friend later on and say, "Hey, would you do me the honor of listening to a couple of these appointments and giving me some tips?" We're in a day and age where we can really use technology strategically to more quickly enhance our ability to communicate and to learn quicker, versus the flip side is probably what you and I did is we went on several appointments, and somewhere around 10 or 15 or 20, we went, wow,
I'm messing up here.
I'm messing up here. I got to change things. So you can really save yourself a lot of pain and struggle, particularly because you hate messing up when you're working on your A-team.
Your A-team. You don't want to mess up on your A-team, I promise you. And that's one reason why at this stage, as people are finishing their training, getting ready to put their plan together to go do their sport racing, don't underestimate the power of role playing. Pick 2, 3, 4 different types of people or couples and do some role playing, the call, the appointment, the ask, everything. And you will be glad once you get into real live appointments, you've done that role playing.
Well, Steve, thank you for being our guest today. I really think this is a great way to start to help someone who's a recent graduate of SRS Foundations or SRS Boot Camp, and just very honored and just happy to have you be our very first guest.
I'm honored to be here.
And thank you again for your continued work in the kingdom and for authoring the God Ask and for continuing to pour into so many people's lives. So God bless you, my friend.
Thank you. Fun to be with you guys. Thanks for joining us. We encourage you to listen and subscribe to the SRS podcast that answers questions and dives into topics relevant to ministry partner development. For more resources, browse our website, supportrasingsolutions.org.